Gerry Conlon came to London town, bring his son home. See justice done, Lord Donaldson was put in command with injustice laws, with a slide of his hand in that land.
I was kidnapped from my bed by soldiers with grease paint on their faces, dragged from my bed, handcuffed and taken to the police station and tortured. I was then hooded and handcuffed and flown to a foreign country, England, and tortured again. And in the period of 7 days, the British government, and I don't say the British police, I say the British government, Roy Jenkins in particular, Merlin Rees as well, one of those two signed a form that gave immunity to the police who were allowed to torture us. And I mean torture. To be held naked, to have Alsatian dogs set upon you, to be taken out naked to country lanes, hooded, handcuffed, the hood taken off and told to open your mouth. And when I shook my head, they hit me in the head with a revolver, and I went, oh, and they stuck the gun in my mouth, pulled the hammer back and pulled the trigger. This is what they did. This is what they were allowed to do. This is why no policeman has ever been convicted of not just framing the Guildford 4, the Maguire 7 and the Birmingham 6, but any innocent prisoner. And then we were taken before a judge. And the outcome was already decided. The only thing it was in the balance was the length of time we would get. And Donaldson, on the 22nd of October 1975, when we were found guilty of a crime we didn't commit, said that he wanted an oath from the Home Secretary, why the proper legislation was no longer on the statute book, why hanging wasn't available as a sentence to him. And he looked at us, myself, Carol Richardson, who's now dead, by the way. Carol died last year, 55 years of age, several breakdowns in prison, being administered mind-altering drugs, came out to a world she didn't understand, confused, went to live with her lawyer, Alistair Logan. I went to live with Gareth. And she went into Guildford one day, and the people in Guildford came up to her and expressed their sorrow and horror and pain of what had happened to her. And she couldn't take it. And she went back and she decided she didn't want to go out and be recognised again. So she ate herself to 22 stone and was still taking psychotic drugs from the legacy of the horror she went through at prison. And in my head, I still hear Carol's screams on the 22nd of October when they dragged her down the stairs, and could hear her feet being dragged along the corridor by male screws, and the whimpering of her and the howls of her, and then the doors opening and them going in and administrating an injection to her to calm her down. Carol was never the same. Carol's dead now.
15 years for something I didn't do, for something I didn't know anything about.
Innocent people railroaded to jail on the back of what they were allowed to do to innocent Irish people. And they wanted to hang us. But I always knew I was going to get released because I shouldn't have been there. I didn't deserve to be there. I'd done nothing except be Irish. And when they released me, my father's words were burning into my brain. The last time I seen my father alive was Friday the 18th of January 1980, and taken up to the room he was in. And it was full of people in suits. The corridor was full of people, policemen in uniform with guns. And I'm reaching out to hold my hand and trying to pull the oxygen mask off his face. And I'm saying to me, I'm dying. You're never going to see me again. But don't be worrying. My death's going to be the key that opens the door to your cell that gets you out. And when you get out, you go out the front door, because you remember they put us in the back door. And that's what I did. I went out. And burning in my brain was Paddy Hill, who lived in the cell across from me in Gartree for the last 2 years of my sentence. And Paddy used to do marquetry. And every night he would be sanding and varnishing. And I often wondered, was he doing the sanding and varnishing to cover the tears and the whimper of missing his family? And Paddy came out and we fought for other innocent people, because innocent people fought for us. And Paddy set up Mojo, the Miscarriage of Justice organisation. And he set it up out of his own compensation, because we haven't let this go. Because we haven't had justice. Tony Blair apologised in 2005, but did he mean it? No. It was electioneering, it was to get Irish votes in England. That's what it was about. But we met Marie Eagles, who was the Undersecretary to Jack Straw at the Ministry of Justice. And she came out of the side door and she went over to me and Paddy and she started crying. And she said, I've been in the back room reading your files. Yous were not a miscarriage of justice, yous were something else. We always knew we were something else. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate policy by the British government in order to stop a murderous campaign in England by the IRA. In 1994, Barbara Mills, the Director of Public Prosecutions, ordered the government to put a 75-year public immunity interest order on our case, the Official Secrets Act. The only criminal cases in British history. Why? To protect the people who made their names on it. And let me tell you who they are. Michael Havers, who prosecuted us, who withheld evidence. Thatcher made him Attorney General, and then Lord Chancellor. Imbert, the policeman who was the negotiator between the Balcombe Street and the Special Branch, he was a run-of-the-mill detective sergeant. He organised the perjury. They made him head of the Metropolitan Police. Thatcher knighted him, and Blair made him a lord. And when he was made a lord, Blair also offered Gareth Pearce an OBE for her services to justice. And when Gareth heard that Imbert was having an investiture at the same time, she turned it down. But I'll tell you what, I wish there had been a Julian Assange, an Edward Snowden, a Bradley Manning around when we were in jail to get unearth the papers that the government are holding and refusing to let the public see. I wish there was a Bradley Manning around then. Bradley Manning's kept the contract between the people and himself, because us as people elect politicians to go into power on our behalf, to enrich our lives, to keep us safer and to give us better economic conditions. We don't elect them to get into bed with oil companies. We don't get into bed with the likes of Cheney's Halliburton and all the rest. And we don't get them to bail out the bankers. We needed a Bradley Manning here when the Anglo-Irish Bank was collapsing and people were being taxed to death and having to dig them out of a hole. That's what we needed. And you've got to ask yourself, are we richer and wiser because of what Bradley Manning did? You bet your arse we are. And are we more informed about making choices when the next election comes up as to the dirty deeds that are done dirt cheap by politicians and bankers and oil companies? I would think we are. But what Bradley Manning did was expose the horror of what governments expect their children, their sons and daughters to do on their behalf. The pretext of going to war to liberate people who the ally is now the enemy and the enemy is now the ally. We all need to be aware of what is being done in our name, because it's not my name they're doing it in. I didn't vote for a politician to take me to war, or to take my country to war, or to send young men and women to war, to be blown up and shot, some of them coming back without limbs, some of them coming back so traumatized that they become outside of society. That's not what you get politicians into power for. We have to stand up and say to them, you represent us, not big business, not Fannie Mac, not mortgage companies, not JP Morgan, not Chase America. We need them to enrich our lives, not destroy our lives. At times like this, people are sitting in cells across the world and they can't hear our voices. But if we talk about it and debate it and encourage others to become part of it, they will hear our voice. And not only will they hear our voice, but the politicians will hear our voice. It was people power that got the Guildford 4, the Birmingham 6 out of jail. And it's been people power that's got everybody else out of jail. Politicians are there to represent us, not to talk down to us. Because if they talk down to us, we have the choice never to elect them again. We need them to fulfill the contract that they make with us. We need to hold them to that contract. And I just like to say, I could have been hung for something I didn't do. And thank God, the capital punishment is no longer in existence in England. Thank you very much.
Here I stand, a father and a man for my son, for justice from this land that makes and it fades, that shakes the scales of justice so that none can be had, so that none can be had. Gerry Conlon died 1981 in a British prison. Rest in peace.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Thank you.